In the heart of Siberia, a family's dream camping trip ended in a brutal struggle for survival when a massive grizzly bear attacked without warning. This is the chilling tale of their final moments. The day had begun innocently enough. Viktor Drachev, a middle-aged man with a love for nature, had planned this trip as a getaway from the pressures of urban life. His wife, Anastasia, shared his passion for the outdoors, and their children, 14-year-old Evian and 12-year-old Maria, were eager to explore the rugged beauty of the Siberian wilds. The family had trekked for hours, passing thick forests and meandering rivers until they reached a secluded campsite tucked away in a valley, surrounded by towering pines. The air was crisp, and the earth was still firm from the remnants of winter. The Drachevs set up camp with a sense of peace, the kind that only the wilds could offer. Viktor started a fire while Anastasia prepared their dinner, spreading bread and cheese across a blanket as their children eagerly collected firewood. The sounds of the forest were a comforting backdrop. Birds calling, insects buzzing, and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. It was a typical evening in the wilderness, filled with warmth, laughter, and the scent of fresh pine. But there was something else lurking in the depths of the forest, a predator drawn by the scent of food and the stirrings of the evening. A massive grizzly bear, hungry and desperate, had picked up the faintest hint of the Drachev's meal. Its immense form moved silently through the underbrush, its dark fur blending seamlessly with the forest floor. Its sharp senses led it to the clearing, where the firelight flickered like a beacon in the growing darkness. The Drachevs, oblivious to the danger, continued their meal, laughing and talking. The evening stretched on, the warmth of the fire contrasting with the chill creeping in from the surrounding wilderness. The bear was closing in, its presence unnoticed by the family, who were too wrapped in their moment of peace to notice the shifting shadows. It paused at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing in the firelight as it assessed its prey. The bear, with its primal intelligence, recognized the family's vulnerability. Then, with a violent roar that shattered the calm, the bear lunged. It tore through the underbrush like a force of nature, a blur of muscle and fury. Viktor was the first to react, his heart pounding as he recognized the danger. He grabbed a burning log from the fire, brandishing it like a weapon, but the bear was undeterred. With a swipe of its massive paw, it sent Viktor crashing to the ground, air driven from his lungs as pain exploded through his chest. He fought to stay conscious, struggling to protect his family. Anastasia screamed, her voice a raw cry that echoed through the stillness. Evan and Maria, frozen in shock, could only watch as the bear tore into their father, its jaws snapping. Viktor struggled to his feet, blood pouring from his wounds, but the bear was relentless. It reared up on its hind legs, towering over him, and brought both of its paws down with a force that shattered bone. Viktor collapsed under the blow, the burning log slipping from his hands as he crumpled to the ground. The bear turned its attention to Anastasia and the children. The fire, once a symbol of warmth and safety, was now a dim flicker in the face of a raging storm. Anastasia tried to shield her children, using her body as a barrier, but the bear was unstoppable. Its jaws snapped at her, and with a violent swipe, it sent her flying to the ground. She landed in a heap, her body limp as the bear's fury was unleashed on her. Evan and Maria, too young to fully comprehend the horror unfolding before them, could do nothing but scream and cry. The bear's massive form overwhelmed them, its savage hunger driving it to tear into the family with terrifying speed. In a matter of minutes, the once serene campsite was transformed into a scene of carnage, blood staining the earth, the fire flickering weakly as the bear's attack continued. The bear, having sated its hunger, dragged the lifeless bodies into the forest. The clearing was left in an eerie silence, the only sound the crackling of the fire as it slowly died. The forest, once alive with the sounds of life, was now a tomb, holding the remains of the Drachev family in its cold, unforgiving grip. The following morning, a group of local hunters arrived after being alerted to the disappearance of the Drachev family. They had been preparing for a routine expedition in the region, but now the task was far more urgent. The air around them felt still, almost as if the forest itself was holding its breath. As they reached the clearing, the sight that met them was far worse than what they had expected. The once peaceful campsite was now a scene of chaos, a grim testament to the savage power of the bear. The ground was soaked with blood, staining the once pristine earth beneath the tents. Fragments of the Drachev family's belongings, clothing, bags, and torn fabric were scattered across the clearing. The fire that had once crackled with warmth was now reduced to a dying ember, casting a faint glow in the eerie silence. The hunters moved carefully, their years of experience guiding their every step. They could tell immediately that this was not the work of a typical bear encounter. The carnage was extensive, the signs unmistakable, the brutal claw marks on the nearby trees, the blood-soaked earth, and the disarray were all indicators that the bear had been in a frenzied state, driven by something more than just hunger. It was an animal protecting its territory, acting on raw, instinctive aggression. They followed the trail, deep into the forest, their senses heightened. The signs were clear. The bear hadn't simply hunted for food. It had attacked with a level of fury that spoke of territorial defense, the need to defend a critical space it considered its own. As the hunters moved further into the woods, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air seemed to grow colder, and every snap of a twig beneath their boots sounded deafening in the otherwise silent wilderness. Despite the heavy snow that had already started to fall, the hunters continued their pursuit. They knew that the bear had already claimed what it had wanted, but they had to find it. A bear that had tasted human flesh would not stop. It had become a danger to everyone in the area. Hours passed before they finally found the bear, hidden deep in the thicket. Its massive form was partially obscured by the surrounding trees, but there was no mistaking its identity. The bear was larger than any they had ever seen, its fur matted with blood from the previous night's attack. It was an apex predator, the embodiment of raw, primal power. Its eyes, however, revealed something unsettling, an intelligence that showed it had fully recognized the threat it posed. The hunters paused, their weapons at the ready. They had no choice now but to act. The bear was still too close to the area where the family had died, and its presence posed a continuing danger. With the cold precision they had honed over years in the wilderness, the hunters took aim. The first shot rang out, shattering the stillness of the forest. The bear staggered, its massive body dropping to the ground. The forest fell eerily quiet once again. The hunters stood for a moment, looking down at the fallen creature. Despite the tragic necessity of their actions, there was no sense of triumph in their victory. The damage had already been done. The Drachev family was gone, their lives snuffed out in a brutal instant. They had not been prepared for the violence the wilderness could unleash. The hunters left the site shortly after, taking one last look at the campsite where the bear had struck. They understood that the wilderness had claimed its victims, and the harsh reality of their deaths would forever serve as a reminder. The grief and loss that hung in the air were palpable, and there was no escaping the stark truth. There was no protection from nature's raw power. The bear had been relentless in its defense, and there had been no way to outrun that. Back in the town, news spread quickly. The community was shocked by the senseless violence, and people mourned the loss of a family that had simply sought a peaceful escape from the chaos of everyday life. The story of the Drachev family became a tragic legend, whispered in hushed tones around campfires, a stark reminder of the deadly reality lurking just beyond the edge of civilization. Local authorities heightened their warnings, advising people to be more cautious in the remote areas. But it was clear to everyone who heard the story that no amount of caution could guarantee safety in a place where nature still reigned supreme. As for the Drachev family, Their names became synonymous with the unforgiving wilds. They had ventured into the Siberian wilderness, seeking nothing more than a break from their busy lives, yet they had become another tragic chapter in the story of the wilderness's harshness. The family's disappearance served as a grim warning, one that would echo through the region for years to come. The bear that killed them was gone, but its legacy, the terrifying truth of what can happen when you step too far into nature's domain, remained. The Siberian wilderness had claimed its prize, and in doing so, had reminded the world of the thin line that separates the fragile human world from the primal, relentless force of nature.